President Obama spoke at MIT on Friday and immediately began rewriting history. He made the claim that his administration was scandal-free thanks to the magical power of diversity. Running guns to Mexican cartels didn't happen. Weaponizing the IRS and the FBI against political opponents, fake news. Well, Obama has been patting himself on his back. The party he shattered is searching for a champion in the next election. Fox's Juan Williams just argued in an opinion piece that President Trump's three strongest challengers would all be African-American women: Oprah, Michelle Obama, and Senator Kamala Harris of California. Is that true? Fox senior political analyst Brit Hume joins us tonight. Brit, so the first question, thanks for coming on, is that true? Do you think diversity kept Barack Obama's 2 terms entirely scandal-free?
Well, I don't think it was entirely scandal-free. You just mentioned a couple of examples, and then there's another one, a kind of a howler, and that is his Secretary of State so recklessly mishandled classified information that she was very nearly indicted, and many legal experts think she should have been. I would rate that as a pretty big scandal. I don't think diversity had anything to do with it one way or another, but it certainly argues against the idea that it was scandal-free. It wasn't.
It's funny, though. I mean, the former president, and to really do his credit, I mean, he hasn't been, I mean, this was apparently an off-the-record comment that got reported. He hasn't been in the news, really, and I think that's exactly what a former president should be, not around. However, it seems a little early to start rewriting the history of an administration that just ended, doesn't it?
Well, look, all presidents try to see their administrations in the most favorable possible light, and he's looking back on his, and I'm sure he's looking at the man in the White House and trying to create a contrast with him, because Obama, whether you liked him or not, did behave himself with a certain dignity and grace that some have found lacking in Donald Trump. Clearly, Obama has found that lacking in Donald Trump, and I think he'd like to contrast his performance in office with that of Mr. Trump, but to say that his administration is scandal-free is nonsense.
Yeah, it is. So there was a piece this week by our colleague and friend Juan Williams. I'm not singling him out. A lot of people have basically written this, but said that the 3 main challengers to President Trump, who made, in effect, announcements that he's running again 3 years from now, would be Oprah, Michelle Obama, and Kamala Harris of California, all 3 black women. What struck me about this was the way it was framed and the way so many of these conversations are framed. They primarily turn on questions of race and gender. Is that the future, do you think, of American politics, identity politics?
Well, it certainly is the future of the Democratic Party. Indeed, it's the present of the Democratic Party that it looks at things that way. And being a woman and being a minority would be an important credential for nomination in the Democratic Party. It doesn't mean you won't. That doesn't mean you're going to get the nomination, but it gives you a leg up. It gave Hillary Clinton a leg up and enabled her to fight off the rather significant challenge from a geriatric socialist in the person of Bernie Sanders. One might have thought that would have been easy, but such is the Democratic Party today that it wasn't easy at all. And if you're looking ahead to 2020, whoever it is likely to need to have quite leftist credentials in order to touch the heart of the Democratic Party, which is far to the left of where it used to be. I think all 3 of the women described, I'm not really sure where Oprah is on all the issues. I really haven't looked into it very carefully because I doubt she's going to run. Kamala Harris has certainly shown herself to be quite liberal, and certainly Michelle Obama would be seen in that light as well. I think Kamala Harris, by the way, would be an interesting candidate. She has a tendency to make gaffes and say particularly amazing things. For example, she said that Sheriff Joe Arpaio should not have been pardoned because he'd committed a crime. Well, madam, that's why he needed to be pardoned. She also said that it was wrong to say that the Dreamers were unlawful. Well, that's part of the definition of what the Dreamers are. They came here and are here illegally, and that's why we're trying to, so many people are working so hard to try to find a way to keep them here. They wouldn't be subject to deportation if they weren't unlawful. But such is Kamala Harris. I think Michelle Obama, Tucker, would be an imposing candidate.
Interesting. So, I mean, can we just be totally honest and say that, Terry McAuliffe, who was making noises about running the other day, and there are a number of people who look like Terry McAuliffe saying they're going to run as Democrats, nobody like Terry McAuliffe is going to get the nomination this time. I mean,
no, I don't think so. I think Terry McAuliffe is, he's too much. I think Terry McAuliffe would probably be seen as too much of a creature of the Democratic Party as it once was under Bill Clinton and later under Hillary Clinton. And I don't think that's where the Democratic Party is now. Consider this, Tucker. Dianne Feinstein was just Dianne Feinstein, who's, not a liberal on everything, but a liberal on nearly everything. Was just denied the endorsement of the Democratic Party in California, and Dan Lipinski, who is a congressman from the southwest side of Chicago, or just his district also includes some of the suburbs there, was just given the heave-ho by the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee in his reelection bid in favor of a more liberal candidate. This is where that party is going, and if you're going to win a nomination in this party in 2020, in my estimation, you're going to have to be pretty far out there. And you know, if you're Elizabeth Warren, you might have the credentials, you might not have the right skin color, but Michelle Obama might indeed fit the bill.
I think it's been an undercovered story for a long time, and I appreciate that, Brit. I think you're right. Good to see you.
You bet.